the quote is employers not only want you to be able to do the job, but to care about it. That's empathy. That's a character quality. And about the people with whom you work. Empathy. It's a character quality. You don't get it from a textbook. Where do you get it? You get it from life, mentoring, peer pressure, and your environment.
Hello and welcome to all our listeners to another fabulous episode of EDU Unlocked with me, Ashish Fernando, your host. And our podcast is all about meeting people in higher education who are making a difference, people who are at the forefront of technology, at the forefront of enrollment, helping students find their way through the complicated, even though it feels easy from the outside, a complicated life cycle and journey throughout the institution. And one such inspirational leader who's making a difference is Dr. William Wegert, who's joined us today, and he's the former Dean of International Student Programs at Liberty University, and right now fully focused on international student admissions. And here's the thing that I've never said on this podcast. Here's a person who's worked with this institution, the current institution, for the last 4 decades. That's 40 years at an institution. And I cannot wait to ask for his motive and his rationale behind helping one institution and being dedicated to it for such a long, amazing time. So, welcome, Dr. Uyghur, to our podcast.
Ashish, it's good to be with you. Thank you for that intro.
So I already said it in my intro, and I have to ask you this. 40 years. How different does it feel today compared to 40 years ago when you started?
Oh, wow. Well, back when I started, the university was very young. Liberty University was started just as recently as 1971. So, what feels different now is a radical difference in the sense that back then, those were what we call pioneer days. Those were days where there were financial struggles. Those were days where the campus was relatively small. Those were days where the buildings were 1980s, okay? And when I fast forward 40 years, and it really is amazing to even hear that from your lips, because who works 40 years, let alone 40 years at one institution, and let alone after a career I had with the U.S. government. It's like you make me feel a little old, but I don't feel old, really. I'm still excited about my career at Liberty University, and the big difference in answer to your question is that we were in the pioneer days as a very young college. And now we're a world-class university with well over 16,000 students on campus and well over 120,000 students in our online program. And that's a whole story in itself.
My God, I did not even know that number was so big for online.
It's huge. It's huge.
That's amazing.
If I could just give you briefly, when I first started in
Uh,
1984 at the university, our forward-thinking, very entrepreneurial CEO said we need to start a distance education program. As like in 84, there were some colleges like Kaplan and others that were not campus based that were doing distance education only. But I believe, and I haven't researched it, that Liberty is probably one of the few, if maybe not the only campus based university that was starting distance education. And for most of your listeners, that was before the internet, and most of your listeners probably have no idea what that world was like. So we were sending out VHS cassette tapes of 40 hours worth of lectures along with textbooks, full-size textbooks, and what we call work text to bring it all together, the video, the tapes, and and the textbooks, and sending those out in big boxes to largely back in those days adults who couldn't leave home. They were sending their kids to college for the first generation, but these adults wanted an accredited degree from a faith-based university, and that was the beginning of back in those days called Liberty University School of Lifelong Learning. Enter the internet 40 years later, and Liberty University is one of the largest providers of distance education.
I'm amazed at this. I mean, I'm working with some online institutions here, and like Western Governors is one of our customers, and they have close to 150, 70,000 students, and they're one of the largest. I mean, you're at 120,000. You're pretty much up there. That's amazing.
And don't quote me on that figure. That was a while back, so I can't tell you where it was today because I don't work
Yeah, you
directly
don't
with
deal with.
online. It might be
Okay.
larger.
And
Yeah.
I hope it's increased
Yeah.
since then. Great, amazing. So, international students have been your focus
Yes,
for
sir.
a majority of the time.
Yep.
What motivates you to work with international students? What's so different? And I'm an international student, so I have my opinion there, but I'd love to hear from you what you see as the difference in terms of, their motivations and whether it's way more life-changing for them than it is for a domestic student. I don't know, but I mean, with all those years of talking and, helping international students, I'm sure you have your like top three. Like, here's why I like working in international. We'd love to hear that.
Well, Ashish, you would probably be the first person to know or to answer the question, is becoming an international student in the United States, for example, a life-changing experience? And of course, it's
Yeah,
radically
prime
unchanging.
example.
Yes, but let's back up because change can go both directions, be positive or negative, as you know. And I think when I look at the world situation, and I'm a big picture person, and I see the tensions, I see the animosity, I see the misunderstandings of cultures, religions, and everything, I know over 4 decades of experience that international education is one of the keys to world peace and one of the keys to
Mm,
prosperity, one of the keys of just us learning and how to get along with one another and then doing that. And so I think from a big picture perspective, I'm committed to international education because I know that we are as we say, changing the world one international student at a time. It does change your perspective. When I've traveled abroad and I can tell stories, recruiting in scores of countries, it's life changing for me to go into country X and to see some things, hear some things, eat some things, talk with people, learn how they live, and so forth. And that's one of the greatest joys I've had is talking with international students when they come to campus and hearing their stories. So, and that's the question, why am I so committed to it? One, because I really believe in international education as a world-changing philosophy and changing for the better. Two, the joy of just seeing students come to the United States, broaden their horizons. Three, and learning the English language, becoming extremely proficient in the English language if they weren't already, and then being able to launch into a career based on the experience they've had in two major cultures, the one from home and the one that they were immersed in here at Liberty University, for example. And so to me, that's just empowering and to
yeah.
be able to participate in that and to facilitate that and to encourage students. And then the third thing, Ashish, would be my particular university as a Christian university, as a faith-based university, is part of my own particular worldview as well. So I'm
Mm,
committed to the university's perspective and its worldview. And so if I had up at a secular university where I started, Miami University, Ohio State University, Colorado State University, I've had experience on both sides with 2 degrees from secular universities and then 2 more degrees from Liberty University. I really see the difference and embracing the surprising benefits of a faith-based education that I love to talk to people about.
yeah, I love it, and I do want to talk about it because especially, from where I come from, India. I mean, I completely resonate with Liberty's faith-based approach because I was raised Catholic in India, but a
Oh,
majority of the country is Hindu, right? And so I'm always interested to know like how people perceive education. Like even though I'm from India, somebody else who's from India will probably perceive education at Liberty slightly or maybe way more differently than I do, right? Because I'm familiar with the religious teachings and the religious approach that Liberty has. So I wonder if you've had some of those experiences.
oh, definitely that. And I guess I look back upon my secular education going to college, Miami University at 17 years old, ill prepared for the radical independence that I
Mm,
had, ill prepared for the culture in the sense that it was even back in the 70s, significant amount of drugs, alcohol, partying, lifestyle, and of course, the female connections and so forth. All of that was being drop kicked into an environment that I wasn't really ready for. And thankfully I had a strong mission that was driving me to get good grades, and I did that. But things could have turned a different direction. So when I look at the faith-based education at Liberty University, and I think about the fact that, it's not like you're damned if you smoke or drink. It's just that we don't think that you should be making those decisions about that lifestyle while you're in college. You stay focused on your education. So being part of a university where alcohol and tobacco and even legal drugs, in terms of marijuana, which is becoming more legal in the United States, and co-ed dormitories, those things, we set aside. Listen, if you're going to smoke, if you're going to drink, if you don't believe in marriage or whatever it might be, you make those decisions after the fact. But right now, we want you to focus, and we want the
Wow. Yeah.
dormitories to be your sacred place, so the boys aren't running around the girls' dorms and vice versa. And the campus is tremendously exciting, although alcohol is not a part of it, and smoking is not a part of it either. We're all into whole person education, and taking care of your body is part of that philosophy that we have at the Christian University.
It's amazing, and it's a wholesome experience, and a lot of people will realize the benefits of it after the fact, after they complete their education
Yes.
and they grow older, right? Like, yeah, like I always, my friends always joke. They'll say, "Hey, that bottle of scotch you have at home, it's been there for the last 3 years." I'm like, "Yeah, because I went to a faith-based school and a college, and yeah, it was just kind of that. Like, it was not part of everyday culture that you come to the dorm and drink beer or whatever. So
All
it's
right.
just I'm not interested."
Interesting you would say that, because I have a gift bottle of a bourbon, and I took it to a 70th birthday party, which my wife and I celebrated with our family this last weekend, and it came back unopened. It's like, just go there. I mean, it's there. It wouldn't be a big deal if I drank some, but it's just like the motivation wasn't there. And I respect people who make a decision otherwise, and I'm
Yeah,
not a teetotaler, but we just think, and this goes back to what happens, I think, between the ages of 17 and 23, 24 years old. You're going, just from a verbal standpoint, you're going from a teenager to a young adult as you go off to college. I went at 17. Most students at 18 here in the US, and international students tend to be a little older, maybe 19, 20 when they come. But the exceptions are there. But I guess the point is, that's a very important transitional period in a person's life. The friends
yes,
you're going to make, the lifestyle you're going to choose, the ethics, the morality is all going to be influenced in a large measure by your peers. And
very true.
a famous speaker here in the United States, a motivational speaker, says, "You are the result of, what do you say? You are the product of your five closest friends. Those are the ones who are going to make you who you are." Is the peer pressure going to be positive or negative? And although no university is a perfect place, mine included, um, I believe over 4 decades of experience that the peer pressure is in a very positive direction. We have students
Very
from all
good.
50 states, 7 different countries, and some of the brightest and the best. You look at the competitions that we're winning, you look at the academics. For example, our law school was just had the highest bar passage rate of any school in Virginia. And we're talking about James Madison, we're talking about Virginia, University of Virginia, we're talking about other highbrow, law schools here. I don't know if JMU has a law school, but let's say University of Virginia, for example. Um, there's some highbrow law schools in Virginia, and Liberty somehow ended up with the highest bar passing rate. That's what we strive for.
That's amazing. But most of the friends that people make when they're there or when they're there, right? Because they're in campus, they're studying together and they live in those dorms. And yeah, it's an important part of the culture. That's an amazing thing to learn. Nobody's actually talked about student life like that till now on the podcast. It's a very unique perspective. Love
Well,
it.
I've traveled quite extensively in my earlier days recruiting in various countries, and I found that in many countries that officially the country has no real appreciation for Christianity or the Christian religion. It's hardly, the state religion, by just the opposite, I might say, and I won't name the countries. But even though those parents are not necessarily Christian believers, maybe they know nothing about Christianity. When I tell them about the lifestyle, when I tell them about the peer pressure, when I tell them about drug-free, alcohol-free, tobacco-free, no co-ed dorms, and that's the environment that we foster. And by the way, let me just say, it's a
Oh, yeah, we want our
tremendously
child
exciting
to.
campus. There's no shortage of excitement on our campus, no shortage of things that we do to enjoy recreation and other activities. When the parents hear about that, they say, I, I'm okay with my daughter taking a class in Bible like you did at a Catholic school, no doubt. And I have no problem with my son going to chapel as long as they're in this kind of environment. And so I find that really it brought a joy to me to be able to even recruit to students who have no interest in Christianity, or parents who have no specific interest in Christianity. And by the way, Liberty admits students who are not Christian. We just want students to communicate to us on the front end that they know what they're getting into, that there is no smoking, drinking, no co-ed dorms. They're going to go to convocation, an event we have twice a week. They're going to have faculty members who pray with them, and they're going to take a few courses in the Christian religion so that they understand it.
Amazing. Love it. I want to switch it to an important question because a lot of our listeners will be asking themselves this question, right? Does people looking to get into leadership roles within higher ed, right, like yourself, does it in any way hamper or stunt growth if they're thinking about it as a one and done sort of a thing? I'm going to find my perfect place when I'm 25 and I'm going to dedicate my career to the school, like yourself, right? Versus saying, yeah, I'm going to spend, 5, 10 years here, learn what I can, also give them all the things that I can give. And then at that point, it's saturated. So I think it's time to move. Like, most people think of it that way, and I say 5 to 10. There's a lot of people who think of it in like 2 to 4 year cycles. Uh, I cannot find a better person to have an answer to that question.
We're talking about people who want a career, or thinking about a career in higher education per se. And I would
Yeah.
just say that in most cases, don't become wedded to your town, because you probably do want to be in a cross-pollinating situation where you get experience at this university and then move up the ladder at another university. That's how it's done typically, and probably that is well recommended, because there's a certain sense in which, even though I've been to conferences and even though I've had relationships with professionals in higher education through the years, I probably would say to myself, I'm probably a little more provincial, a little more narrow-minded, a little less exposed. So if you were to ask me questions about, all these other universities or the general situation in higher ed, I would probably not be the expert to answer that, because I've been so committed to the university. In my
Mhm.
case, a couple things were going on. Number one, um, I wanted to get degrees from the university where I was working. So that took 5 years for a master's degree and perhaps another 4 or 5 for a doctorate degree. Secondly, I ended up, as you know, we've talked about, I have 8 children, and we
Yes.
were home educating those children, and many of them actually went on to attend Liberty University. So there was a lot of what's the word, centripetal as opposed to
Mhm.
centripetal force kind of holding me here. Thirdly, the city of Lynchburg is my kind of city. I mean, of all the places that I could have ended up going to grad school, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Denver, these were the options for me. I'm so glad I chose Lynchburg, because this town is the place to live in. It's a place to raise children. It's by the mountains. I love the outdoors. My wife and I are hiking the Appalachian Trail for the second time, and the trail goes 20 minutes by us, 20 minutes drive, and I can be on the Appalachian Trail. And then finally,
Are you
um,
doing the whole thing all the way to the
yeah,
northeast?
her email address is lifeafter8@blank.com. And, and that's because when she got done raising and home educating 8 children, which we were in it together, but she did a lot of that work while I was going off to enjoy life at Liberty University, even though I was real part of it in the mornings and the evenings. It was like, okay, I'm doing what I want to do now. And what I want to do is hike the Appalachian Trail, 2,200 miles, Georgia to Maine. And she did it. She completed it. Took 7.5 years. It wasn't straight through because I need her at home, and she needed to be at home. We got a lot going on still with kids and grandkids. But then she said, "I'm gonna do it again." So we're doing it again. I haven't crossed walk every
Oh,
inch. She has, and I'm the support team, so I probably
amazing.
did 2/3 of it. But all that to say is, all that put together kind of kept me here, and it's been a joy, because Liberty, like I said at the beginning, it was in pioneering stages. And as I told you earlier, my friend, I've never had a bad day at Liberty University. I've
Amazing.
never looked forward to going to work, because it's such a dynamic place, such a growing place. always something going on. And I consider it to be part of God's blessings as we train what we call champions for Christ. It's our motto, and we're not ashamed of that. But all of that put together was just kept me right here, and it's been a great run, and I'm still enjoying it. And one of the reasons I get to work with people like you.
Amazing. Oh well, no, no, the pleasure is all ours. I mean, this is amazing. It's been great working with you and just learning from you, in terms of how you look at the world. So no, it's great. It's great. And you're also not just inside the institution, you're also doing so many things outside. I mean, raising 8 kids and yeah, walking the Appalachian Trail. It's amazing. My
It's
wife would
awesome.
love to do that stuff. Uh,
Well, you're in Utah, right? There's a lot of amazing trails in
Oh
Utah.
yeah. Oh yeah. There are. Yeah, she loves it here. So yeah, when we were in Boston, it was kind of hard. We did like small parts of the Appalachian Trail
Okay.
near
Yep.
Boston, New York, but yeah, no, this is very different. Utah's different though, in many.
You come visit us in Virginia. We will take the two of you out and we'll go for as many days as you want to go.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. We'll do that for sure. So I want to talk about one thing, Dr. Wegert, is your book. And we've spoken about this, even when we first met, we spoke about the book. You sent me a copy. I highly appreciate it. I want you to tell our listeners about the motivation behind this book that you wrote. It's titled The Modern Day Black Belt, right? And it's all the learnings that you've taken from martial arts and you've applied it to regular human life. So tell us a little bit about the book and also where we can order the book from.
Okay. No connection with Liberty University. You need to qualify that. But
Yeah.
of course, our four youngest, child number five had a lot of activity, a lot of energy. Let's put it that way. So we saw the sign on the local martial arts school, self-control and discipline. So he says, okay, martial arts, we need to get him in. Long story short, he excelled in martial arts, and the we said this is really good. So the three younger children underneath him all got enrolled, and before we knew it, the owner said, "Listen, I would like to sell the school to you and to your son Samuel because he's not only very good, but I think he could run this, even though he was like 15 at the time." So,
Wow.
so I guess we martial arts just impacted our family from those years on in such a powerful way that my son started a company called UpLevel Martial Arts and ended up with schools in 3 different states, 6 different schools, and it had such a powerful impact on us in terms of things just beyond what goes on in the studio that we thought we would take the principles of martial arts as we understand them and kind of put it together in the sense of how do you apply these principles to life itself. So my Sam and I wrote the book, The Modern Day Black Belt, um, Timeless Secrets from Martial Arts Guaranteed to Uplevel Your Family, Work, and Life. And a lot of it just boils down to self-discipline, setting goals, self-control, family, because this was a family-based martial arts, and we kind of have the idea of the family that kicks together stays together. And there were just so many things we saw going on with these families who are enrolling as families. And young people, for example, who I would go to a graduation, and my children all have third, fourth, fifth degree black belts, and one of them won world competition up in Niagara Falls
Oh,
in um, in a global competition. But all that to say is, I would go to graduations as a guest judge, for example, just supporting the kids in their big graduation ceremonies. And I would see young people just starting off in the program who couldn't look you in the eye, had a very weak handshake. And so forth, and then it come back, 6 weeks later, 12 weeks later to the next graduation, and they would, hey, Dr. Wigger, good to see you, and shake my hand, give a firm handshake, and so forth. It's like transformation, which is what it's all about. We all want to grow. We all want to become better versions of ourselves. That's why I'm staying at Liberty. That's why we believe in martial arts. And it's those kind of things that set people up for success in life. And I know one of the things that when I meet internationals, sometimes internationals for the first time coming into the United States, and their handshakes are very
yeah.
weak, part of their culture, whatever. And then I say, hey, listen, here in the United States, give me a good squeeze, look me in the eye, and that'll go far with you, confidence in yourself. So, it all kind of flows together. She's just part of my crazy life.
Amazing, amazing that you took the time to write about it, think about it, and apply it to families. That's amazing.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
book should be available on Amazon. They do instant publishing, the modern day black belt. by Sam Wegert and Bill Wegert. That's my nickname, Bill Wegert. So if anybody's interested, I don't want to pitch the book, but if they're interested, I'd love to have them order it up on Amazon, The Modern Day Black Belt.
That's amazing. We'll definitely put a link in our description for this podcast for people to buy the book. Highly recommend because just from the way Dr. Wiegert speaks, I know I've known him for some time now, and just it's amazing. You have a very I think it's safe to say you have a very emotional side to how you think about your work, just the business of the institution. You start from a very emotional standpoint of, what's important to the person on the other side, be it a student, be it staff. And I think a lot of that comes out in that book.
Mm, thank you. I hope so.
Fantastic.
The book and Liberty University kind of tie together because one of the things that as I watched my children in action, some of them very young, teaching families, teaching adults, teaching young people, and seeing the impact on young people, I kept thinking this is to be able to put on your resume a first degree black belt or a second degree black belt from UpLevel Martial Arts. And I know as a person who has had a staff of up to 13 people at one time, when I had open positions in my department, International Student Services, I would get, pick a number, 25, 30, 40 different applications, and I'd have to pick two or three that I was going to interview because I wasn't going to interview them all. Which of the ones rose to the top? And this brings me to a word of encouragement to any of your students who are going off to college or in high school right now. Build your resume, start now. Build your resume throughout your career. And as I've told this many times, I would much rather have hired an individual with a 3.2, even a 2.9, who was a secretary of the marketing club and who worked a campus job than someone who got a 3.9, went to a ranked university, and has nothing else on their resume to show for it other than they went to a ranked university. That's just me. But I think other employers probably, you know, there are probably a lot of employers who would agree with me on that score. I want well-rounded people. I wanted to hire people who could think critically, who would work independently, who had integrity, who were self-disciplined, who I didn't have to oversee because I'm the opposite of a micromanager when it comes to leadership. And I've hired enough people through the 4 decades to know that has never, with maybe one or two exceptions, come back to bite me in the sense that I want to set them free. I want them to bring me ideas. I want them to work independently so I could do my thing and do what makes me satisfied. I'm trying to help my boss be successful. I wanted to hire people who help me be successful and would do that without me looking over their shoulder. That's what martial arts has been all about. And with some of the things going on at Liberty, that's what we try and do there as well.
I love it. You mentioned, and this is an important segue for us because you mentioned about what goes into a well-rounded student's profile and what they look for. So they might go to a ranked university, but not necessary when they graduate and get out, they have everything that an employer needs. Let's take two steps back then and talk about that ranked university. Like at high school, we always deal with this. Like students will come, Indian students especially, like anybody, mostly the Asian continent is like that, very ranking and brand focused, right? And also cost focused. They want low cost, but they want high ranking and they want like all that.
And full scholarship.
Yeah, exactly. Apple's, yeah. Apple scholarship. And yeah, it's all about, that's the keyword. Even for me, that was the keyword, I'll be honest, right? Being an Indian student. But rankings, as we've built iSchool over the last few years and we've been helping students, we've not really seen a special correlation between the rank and the brand of an institution and career success, right? We've seen so many examples of people who've gone to low-ranked institutes but have been highly successful. We've seen people who've gone to high-ranked, well-branded institutions struggling in their careers. Um, what are your thoughts on ranking? I want to know because we've talked about it a couple of times in the past. And also, what does it mean when, like for instance, schools like Columbia, we just saw them drop like 18 ranks in one go. Uh, like what happens to that student who went the year just prior and said, I'm going to rank 4, and
Right.
well, now you're 25.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, would
Well,
love,
Liberty
I know it's a loaded question. Would love to
is
hear.
Yes, of course, in traveling abroad, many Asian countries, it's always the question. And I guess any person who is just radically committed, wedded to the idea that I must go to a top 100 or school, then I always say, listen, go for it. Liberty's not for you, and you have those credentials. We want you to be at the place where you believe you need to be for your success. But Liberty hasn't really, one, we're young. 1971. Two, the philosophy of our education, and this kind of goes back to our Christianity, is that we're going to add as much value to you as you can possibly take in. It's up to you to take it and run with it. Are you going to be? And so, especially early in our day, Liberty was enrolling students who, you look at them and you say, okay, this is a second chance student. This student might have messed up in high school, might have been totally wired a different direction, and now maybe through God or through life experience, they kind of say, listen, I got my head on straight now. Now we're going to penalize that student and say you have no possibility of getting into Liberty because your high school grades are locked in once you graduate, right? You can't change those high school grades. Um, or are we going to say, listen, we're into value added, and you demonstrate a commitment to make yourself to take advantage of the resources that are here? And I think when you look at our library, you look at our faculty, you look at our environment, you look at our world-class campuses, like stepping into the 21st century, you look at our lab facilities, our technology, our engineering, our cinematic arts, all these are just a music technology program. We do state-of-the-art stuff. And we'll say, listen, we're gonna give you the opportunity to take this and run with it. And that's been our philosophy. So when you think of
Mm.
the formula for ranking, um, and part of that formula is number one, how other college presidents vote about you. And I think Liberty probably doesn't sit too well. Going back to our example of Liberty University School of Lifelong Learning back in the 80s, the school down the street, started by our third president of the United States, the University of Virginia, they were, we don't do distance education. That's just not the way education works. Well, fast forward 40 years, it's like, okay, most universities are doing some form of distance education, but Liberty says, listen, we're
Right.
pioneers, we're entrepreneurial, we're going to make this happen. And we did. So when the internet came, we were in a great position.
You're
My
ready.
point is this: the formula for rankings involves how other universities vote towards you, and being a faith-based, consistently Christian university, we probably don't win points on that score. And then secondly, the ranking, as you know, Ashish, has something to do with how many applications you reject. And so when you come to a very selective,
Mhm.
exclusive university that wants to continue to rise in the rankings and maintain that status, that's their model. And I'm not going to diss it, right? That's not Liberty's model. We're an open enrollment university. You meet the minimum criteria and you get in before the deadline, because we do have limits in terms of our enrollment each year, then you're going to get in. We do have
Oh,
minimum standards in terms of GPA. We want your essay to communicate you understand what you're getting into. But if you demonstrated a compatibility with our mission statement and you want to be here and you know what you're getting into, we want you
you'll
here.
get
And
it.
so that's not going to put us very high in the rankings over time.
That that is such a strong and such a fair point. You're right. I mean, acceptance rate directly is connected to how many applications you reject,
Yeah.
and acceptance rate plays a lot in rankings and also in people's psychology. Hard to get, it's kind of those things. It's, oh, if it's hard to get, I need it.
Right. But
Uh,
but if I could just maybe segue a bit into what I would consider to be, because we're a faith-based Christian university, we believe in whole person education. And
yeah.
when we say that, we mean, our food service is ranked number one consistently across the country on niche.com. Don't quote me on the niche, it's some ranking system, but we have a world-class food service. I mean, I go to eat there on purpose because the quality of the food, the variety of the food is just amazing. All diets, including vegetarian and vegan and gluten-free, you name it, we take care of it. But the quality of the food, and that's because part of the Christian worldview is that your body is a temple of that part of you that will live forever, and that we need to take care of it during the years that we have on earth. And then we look at other things like character. I reflect back upon my years at Miami University, Ohio State, Colorado State. I can't think of too many experiences where character, integrity, which is something you don't get out of a textbook, you don't
Hmm.
get it from an assignment or writing a paper. You get it from mentoring. You get it from peer pressure. And that's a real part of the dynamic here. And I say that because as a hiring supervisor, I looked for integrity, some of the things we've already talked about. And what evidence is there that the person demonstrated integrity or has that integrity? Well, there's some keys. And I think what employers who don't necessarily hold our worldview, they look at Liberty University and they realize Christian University, okay, 10 Commandments, don't steal, don't kill, don't lie, don't cheat, that kind of stuff is like maybe subconsciously, I'm a Liberty student working for me because of the work ethic and because of what they got when they were at Liberty. We find that to be true. So
Bang on.
the
Yeah.
ranking, very few people are going to be like me and be in college their whole life, right, Ashish? They're going to want to go out and get a job. And so it's like, okay, how are we preparing you not just for a career, but for life? Because we all want to be happy. We want to be happy because of our career, but we want to be happy because we get along with our mate. We want to be happy because we have good friends. We have happy because we don't have addictions that are dragging us down, and those kind of things. We want to be healthy. Happy because we're healthy, and all those things work together, which is why I'm so excited about Liberty University.
That is very, very true. And I'm not just saying it, Dr. Wegert. I mean, I moved to Salt Lake City and there's a strong religious affiliation in Salt Lake, right? It's the land of the Latter-day Saints, and Mormon culture is very prevalent.
Yep.
Friends, I have a lot of Mormon friends. We have Mormon employees, and you can see it. You actually see what you're saying. Like, r religious affiliation, yeah, people talk about it. Oh my God, it's like, and sometimes it can get to becoming like a cult or whatever. But the values you learn go all the way. Like, we can see that. We can see, like if I have a salesperson who's out there talking to customers, I can see that they're not just pitching product, they're more emotional. They're trying to understand, there's and all that they've learned through their values from the church or whatever, wherever they're going. But there's a lot of good things that come out of that. So
Mhm.
I totally agree. I was raised that way, and I was telling my mom, she was here first time in 10 years, she decided to visit me in the US. And we were just talking, and she said, "Wow, your life is like, I see how you're doing things, how you live," and she said, I'm proud of you." She rarely ever says she's proud of me. Indian mother,
Mm.
like
Oh,
not
oh,
used to expressing. She'll
oh.
feel it, not used to expressing. She's saying it. And I said, yeah, probably a lot of that was because, you forced me to serve mass 4 days a week when I was a
Mhm.
kid. And and a lot of
Oh,
those things like kind of just stay with you.
well, she's to your point. I thankfully I've not been to either of our two amazing hospitals in Lynchburg as a patient, but when I go there, the nurses trained by Liberty University, I can recognize them in an instant.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Their countenance, the character, the joy. And I get
Yeah.
emotional thinking about it for some strange reason. But that it's it. It's part of an overall whole person education is the best
Yeah.
way that I can actually describe it for you. And there's just a lot of really bright people coming out of the back end of Liberty University. It's not a perfect place. I can brag about it all day long, but the fact is,
Wow,
employers are looking for people who have integrity. Even a quote from U.S. News and World Report, which I find is quite interesting because U.S. News and Report is one of the ranking services, right? And they say the quote is employers not only want you to be able to do the job, but to care about it. That's empathy. That's a character quality, and about the people with whom you work. Empathy. It's a character quality. You don't get it from a textbook. Where do you get it? You get it from life, mentoring, peer pressure, and your environment. And that's what goes on at my university. And that's why I've been there for 40 years.
That's it. We got the quote of the podcast. This is the quote, what you just said. And you're right. Like even when I hire, I'll usually start an interview by saying it's not about your resume. That's not what I'm looking for.
Cool.
I'm looking for people who can be empathetic with customers, who can understand, learn. You could have done whatever, master's in architecture. I don't care. You can still be a great computer engineer if you want to.
Right.
But it's about your ethos, and your ability to drive. But like I said, I had this whole feeling about how emotional you are. But even the way you said what you said about those nurses, and instantly, like you're so passionate about people. I love it.
I can cry easily. I don't know why either. Sometimes it's embarrassing. It's like, why am I crying about that? I'm talking about the bright,
Yeah.
brilliant nurses who are running
Wow.
around the hospital in Lynchburg that I can tell instantly are products of our university. But I don't know, it's just cool. I love it. And then that's why I'm doing
Yeah.
what
Wow. Do you feel fulfilled doing
do I
this?
do
Do
I?
you feel like with all the work you've done and the reaction you've had, you feel like you've fulfilled some of those motives you had for your life when you
I
like
could
began your career and
I could turn my camera right now to a board behind me, in which I have kind of life goals. And one of them says, now this I might get emotional here, no regret exit. I want to leave this life with no regrets. And I've
yeah.
certainly made some stupid mistakes in my past. And a lot of those go back to the days of alcohol, for example.
Mhm.
But I live a fulfilled life. And as I read a letter to my children at our 70th birthday celebration, we went up to the mountains and had 3 nights. I wrote a 5-page letter to them, and I basically said to them a repeated theme through the letter is I am one lucky, and I won't give the word, but I'm a one lucky man, right? And I'm blessed much more than I deserve.
I love it. Well, no, it's you receive what you give and you do give a lot. You've given 40 years to this institution and the people around you in your community. I'm sure there's a high sense of respect for who Dr. William Wegert is.
Mm.
And we got a little bit of that story today. So thank you. Thank you for
Well, it's
sharing with us.
my pleasure, really, Ashish.
It's amazing. Good luck with everything you're doing, not just at the university, but for like people like those nurses
Yes,
in the community. And yeah, would I'll definitely keep track of all your adventures and good luck with everything. Thank you for joining
thank
us.
you. And Ashish, thank you so much for what you're doing, wedding technology with international enrollment and recruitment and so forth. And thank you for supporting Liberty's efforts to recruit students from around the world. I value our relationship.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Wiegert. It's been a pleasure working with you as I don't even consider us a vendor to you. We're like partners, we're friends, and it's been great to do some mind sharing.
Yes, well, thank you for the opportunity. And the feeling is mutual. There's no question about that. We're friends.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all our listeners on our EDU Unlocked podcast with me, Ashish Fernando, and our special guest for today, Dr. William Wiegert from Liberty University. Thank you all for listening and join us again for our next episode coming out pretty soon. Thank you so much.